Hi guys, welcome back to Grim's Shade, where every shadow tells a story. Tonight, we follow a delivery driver through the empty streets of the night shift. It's honest work, bringing food to people who can't or won't leave their homes after dark. But what happens when your GPS leads you to addresses that don't exist during the day? This is a story about the spaces between reality and the people who serve them. So buckle up. Some routes lead to places you can never leave.
I deliver food to houses that don't exist during the day. I've been a delivery driver for 3 years now. Started with pizza, moved to one of those app-based services where you deliver everything from burgers to groceries to pharmacy items. It's decent money if you work the right hours, and I've always been a night owl anyway. Most drivers prefer the day shift. Better tips, safer neighborhoods, easier to find addresses. But I've carved out my niche in the late-night deliveries. 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., when the city belongs to insomniacs, shift workers, and people who just can't sleep. You get used to the weird stuff pretty quickly in this job. Drunk people ordering $50 worth of fast food at 2 a.m., college students who answered the door in their underwear too high to remember they placed an order, people having panic attacks because they can't leave their apartments but desperately need medication from the 24-hour pharmacy. But about 6 months ago, I started getting orders that didn't make sense. It started with 4447 Maple Street. The order came in at 1:17 a.m. Chinese food from Golden Dragon, total of $23.40. Nothing unusual about that. I delivered to that address dozens of times before. Mrs. Chen, elderly woman, always tips exactly 15% and asks me to leave the food by the door because she doesn't like to answer late at night. Standard delivery. Except when I arrived at 4447 Maple Street, there was no house. I'm not talking about a demolished lot or a construction site. I mean the address simply didn't exist. Between 445 and 449 Maple Street, there was just empty space. Not a gap where a house used to be, but like the space for 447 had never existed at all. The numbering went 445, 449, as if 447 was never supposed to be there. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, checking my GPS, double-checking the order. Everything said 447 Maple Street. I called the customer number, went straight to a disconnected line. I tried calling support, but their system showed the delivery as completed. According to the app, I had already dropped off the food and received a 5-star rating. I kept the Chinese food and drove home, figuring it was some kind of system glitch. 3 nights later, I got another impossible delivery. This time it was 1247 Oak Avenue. 2:33 a.m. Pharmacy order. Prescription pickup for someone named David Marshall. I'd been to Oak Avenue hundreds of times. It's a long street that runs clear across town, mostly apartment buildings and small houses. But when I got to where 1247 should be, I found the same thing. The address didn't exist. The street numbers went from 1245 to 1249, like 1247 had been carefully edited out of reality. Again, my app showed the delivery as completed. Again, a 5-star rating from a satisfied customer who didn't exist. I started paying closer attention to these orders. They always came between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., always to addresses that seemed normal until you tried to find them, and they were always for people I'd never delivered to before, despite the app showing extensive delivery histories. The really unsettling part was that during my regular day shifts, I picked up a few weekend afternoon routes for extra money. I started driving past these same addresses. And the houses were there. 4447 Maple Street was a small blue ranch house with an overgrown garden. I could see Mrs. Chen through her kitchen window, washing dishes. 1247 Oak Avenue was a narrow 2-story house painted yellow with a man who looked like David Marshall checking his mailbox. But only during the day. At night, these places ceased to exist. I became obsessed with figuring out what was happening. I started accepting every late-night delivery I could get, especially the ones to addresses I'd never heard of before. About half were normal, regular houses, regular people, regular transactions, but the other half, they were orders to places that weren't there. The food was always real. The prescriptions were always legitimate. The customer's payment information always processed correctly. But the destinations existed only in the delivery app's database and only after sunset. I tried to document it. I took photos of the empty spaces where houses should be, screenshots of my delivery confirmations, even video of myself standing in gaps between buildings that supposedly contained entire residences. But every piece of evidence disappeared from my phone by morning. Not deleted, just gone. Like the files had never existed.
2 months ago, I decided to stake out one of these locations. The order was for 892 Pine Street, 1:45 a.m. delivery. When I arrived, same story. No house, just empty space between 890 and 894. But this time, instead of leaving, I parked across the street and waited. At exactly 1:45 a.m., the space began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt, except it was October and 40 degrees outside. The air twisted and bent, and slowly, a house began to materialize. It started as just an outline, translucent and wavering, but gradually it solidified. Walls, windows, a front door painted dark green, a small porch with a rocking chair, even landscaping, shrubs, a small lawn, a mailbox with 892 and reflective numbers. And standing on the porch waiting for me was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, maybe 60s, wearing a cardigan and house slippers. He waved at me like we were old friends. I got out of my car like I was sleepwalking, grabbed the delivery, Thai food from Bangkok Garden, walked up to a house that hadn't existed 5 minutes earlier, and handed the bag to a man who smiled and thanked me and tipped me $5 cash. "Have a good night, son. Drive safe out there." I walked back to my car in a daze, and when I turned around for one last look, the house was already starting to fade. By the time I started my engine, it was gone completely. Just empty space again. But here's what really scared me. My delivery app showed a delivery history for that address going back 2 years. Dozens of completed orders to 892 Pine Street, all with 5-star ratings, all with customer notes thanking me for reliable service. According to my phone, I'd been delivering to that house twice a month for 2 years. I had no memory of any of those deliveries. I started checking the delivery histories for all the impossible addresses. Every single one showed months or years of successful deliveries, all by me, hundreds of completed orders to houses that don't exist during the day, with customer reviews praising my punctuality and professionalism. The worst part is realizing I must have been making these deliveries all along. My mind had just been editing out the memories, the same way the physical addresses get edited out of reality during daylight hours. Every night, I drive to places that shouldn't exist, deliver food to people who might not be real, and then forget about it by morning. I tried to quit, put in my notice, deleted the app, found a day job at a warehouse. But 2 weeks later, I found myself back in my car at 1 a.m. checking my phone for delivery notifications. I don't remember downloading the app again. I don't remember going back to work. But there I was, driving through the night, carrying Thai food to a house that would disappear at sunrise. I think I'm trapped in some kind of loop. Every night, I deliver food to the spaces between reality. Every morning, I forget about it. Every day, I convince myself I'm done with delivery driving. And every night, I find myself back behind the wheel. The scariest thing isn't that these places don't exist during the day. It's that I'm starting to suspect I don't exist during the day either. When I tried to call in sick to my warehouse job last week, my supervisor had no idea who I was. My name wasn't on any employee roster. According to their records, no one with my name had ever worked there. I'm writing this at 6 a.m., just after finishing my route. In a few hours, I'll probably forget I wrote this. I'll convince myself I need to find a real job, stop driving for the app. But tonight at 11 p.m., I'll check my phone and see delivery notifications waiting for me. And I'll drive to houses that exist only in the dark, serving customers who live in the spaces between what's real and what's not. If you're reading this, if you somehow found this account of my experiences, do me a favor. Don't order food delivery between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., especially not to addresses that seem perfectly normal when you type them in, but that you've never actually seen during the day. Because you might get a driver like me,
someone who exists only to serve the places that reality forgot. And once you become part of this network, once you start depending on the spaces between real and not real, you might find it very difficult to find your way back to the daylight world. I have to go now. It's almost 11 p.m. and my phone is buzzing with notifications. That driver is still out there somewhere, checking his phone for the next delivery, still driving to houses that fade with the sunrise, still serving customers who exist only in the dark. Maybe he's the lucky one. Maybe forgetting is better than remembering that some jobs never really end. That was Scary Reddit Stories number 5, here on Grim Shade. If this story made you think twice about those late-night delivery orders, then you understand that not everyone who brings you food is still entirely human. Subscribe to Grim Shade for more tales from the night shift. Until next time, check your address twice before you order.